Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, we all spend so much time consuming information about how the financial world works. We sort of get the mechanics things like compound interest, right? Or the time value of money. We can calculate net worth.
Sure, that's the textbook stuff.
Exactly, that's financial education. But what we've been seeing in the sources we have piled up here, it just reveals this massive persistent gap between knowing the math and actually succeeding with your money.
And that gap, that's everything. That's the difference between education and true financial literacy.
Okay, unpack that a little. Education versus literacy.
Well, financial education is theoretical. It's the what. Literacy is behavioral. It's the how and the do. I mean, you can have a finance degree. You can know exactly how a 401k works down to the last fine print. But if you lack the consistent, simple, actionable habits to apply that knowledge, you are still incredibly susceptible to the most basic traps that just wipe people out. We see it all the time. People with high-paying jobs, strong knowledge, still caught in these cycles of debt or panic selling because they never built that internal financial discipline. The foundation isn't there.
So that's the core tension we are really trying to tackle today. Our mission is kind of twofold. First, we're going to establish that internal foundation, you know, the micro habits that build financial muscle, that create the capital and the stability you need in the first place.
Right, the personal side of the equation.
And second, and this is where we're going to go really deep, we'll analyze the external economic realities, these dangerous, repeating macro investment cycles that trap so many people.
We want to give you the critical context you need to not just build capital, but to deploy it intelligently. And maybe most importantly, to navigate the inevitable volatility without freaking out.
We're blending the deeply personal with the globally historical.
You have to, because you absolutely need both. You need the discipline to save, say, $100 every month, and you also need the historical awareness to know when the market is setting a trap for you.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're starting inside your wallet, and I guess inside your head, with these foundational micro habits that allow capital to even accumulate in the first place. So the journey here, it starts with what might be the most unsettling realization of all. Your bank account isn't just a ledger of transactions, it's an objective, kind of brutal reflection of your deepest values. Hashtag, tag 1.1, the priority money alignment. Habit, hashtag 1.
Yeah, this first habit, it addresses what the sources call the massive disconnect. Powerful idea. We all claim our priorities are these big, important things like health, travel, learning, financial freedom.
The things we'd say in an interview.
Exactly, the things we want to be true. But then if you actually look at the last 30 days of spending, the hard data chances are that money went toward convenience, impulse buys, or things driven by social obligation, not your stated values.
I found this concept so convicting, personally. I mean, for years, I was falling into this exact trap. I was spending money on things that just didn't matter to me.
Like what?
Oh, perpetually updating my wardrobe because of some, I don't know, external pressure, or paying for the most expensive streaming package, even though I watched the same 3 shows over and over.
Right.
The money was just a reflection of, like you said, a perceived obligation, not my actual personal priorities.
And when money leaves your account for something that doesn't genuinely serve your values, you experience what behavioral economists call spending regret. It's a drain, you know.
Ugh.
Financially, yes, but emotionally too.
Yeah, it feels hollow.
It does. So the objective here is to make every single dollar work toward what you actually care about, to free you from those societal expectations.
So the actionable exercise here is simple, but it demands a lot of honesty. You physically write down your top 5 life priorities: health, learning, financial freedom, quality family time, you know, whatever they are for you. Then you pull up your bank statements for the last month and you compare them directly, side by side.
And that confrontation is the key, that moment of truth. Almost universally, people find a huge gap. They'll say financial freedom is number 1, yet 50% of their discretionary spending is going toward, I don't know, eating out or short-term instant entertainment.
So how do you close that gap? It sounds like it's just about cutting things.
Well, it's not just about cutting, it's about flipping the script. It means consciously directing funds toward that genuine alignment. So you might actually increase your budget for high-quality food, or for fitness classes, or specialized books that align with your value of learning.
That's the paradox of it, right? I've heard people say this. You feel substantially richer even if your total spending stays the exact same.
Exactly, because now every dollar is directed toward reinforcing a core value. It is literally buying you a better life, not just, you know, some temporary novelty. This is the real starting point of literacy. seeing money as a tool for value alignment.
But what about the implementation challenge? I think that's where people get stuck. It's easy to say, oh, the daily coffee is the problem. But if someone realizes they are spending $300 a month on, like you said, quick fixes that aren't on their priority list, how do they practically bridge that gap without just feeling deprived immediately?
That's a great question. It requires immediate reallocation, not just cutting. The sources are really clear on this. You frame it instantly. That $300 you were spending on convenience, okay, 150 of it now goes automatically into your financial freedom investment account.
Okay.
And the other 150 is intentionally allocated toward priority number 2, let's say health. So now you're buying better groceries or a gym membership. Instead of feeling like a sacrifice, it feels like an immediate, powerful upgrade.
Because you're substituting one form of consumption mindless for another that's actually meaningful to you.
Precisely. Hashtag 1.2, the monthly money date, habit, hashtag 2. This next habit is really the antidote to financial procrastination and overwhelm.
Which are the two biggest enemies of getting this stuff done?
Absolutely. The core idea is all about consistency and intentionality, but it's disguised in simplicity. You just block out 30 minutes once a month, no distractions.
It's only 30 minutes. That's key.
It's crucial because it makes it non-intimidating. It's not this huge project. Most people treat their finances like they treat tax season, this massive, overwhelming thing they put off until the last possible minute.
Yeah, trying to tackle all your investment goals, your debt repayment, and your budget in one 8-hour marathon session is just a recipe for burnout. You'll never do it again.
You won't. So the monthly money date is broken down into 3 very focused actions to avoid that exhaustion. First, a quick review of your spending from the past 30 days. You're not judging yourself. You're just patterns. You're checking for patterns, surprises. It's a moment of pure awareness.
Okay, so that's step 1. What's 2?
Step 2 is checking your progress against your existing goals. Are the automated transfers working? Are you actually closer to that down payment target? This just reinforces the long-term perspective.
And then the third action, which the sources say really drives success, is setting one simple, achievable focus for the next 30 days.
Just one.
Just one. And that idea of one achievable focus, it runs completely contrary to our impulse to fix everything at once. What's the research that supports that hyper-focused approach?
It connects directly to all the research on decision fatigue. When you try to change 10 financial variables at once, cut cable, stop buying lunch, increase savings, reduce credit card debt,
your brain just short circuits.
It gets overwhelmed and it shuts down. The result is you change nothing. But by focusing on one single target, let's say increasing your emergency fund by $200 this month, you give your cognitive energy a single clear mission.
And that dramatically increases the completion rate.
It does. And more importantly, it builds momentum. It builds confidence. It's just a series of small, consistent wins that add up over time. The beauty of the 30-minute block is that it's too short to get overwhelmed, but it's long enough to establish a sense of control. If you only accomplish one thing in that 30 minutes, like setting up one automatic transfer, you win. You've beaten inertia.
Yeah.
Hashtag 1.3, automate the basics. Habit, hashtag 3.
All right, this next habit, this deals with the brutal reality of human nature, which is that we are just bad at manual tasks that feel like drudgery.
We are terrible at them.
And financial management, let's be honest, is inherently boring for most people, so relying on willpower is just a losing game.
Willpower is a finite resource. It's like a muscle that gets tired. We use it all day to stay productive at work, to resist eating junk food, to make ourselves exercise.
Right.
By the time we get home, we have zero willpower left to remember to manually transfer money to our investment account. That manual management, it creates decision fatigue, and it leads to missed opportunities or even late fees.
So the sources, they strongly advocate for strategic automation, specifically right after payday, before you can even touch the money.
Yes, and they talk about automating 3 key areas. 1, fixed expenses, like your rent or mortgage, must leave your account automatically. 2, automated transfers into separate savings or investment accounts must happen before you even see the money in your checking account.
Pay yourself first, the classic rule.
The classic rule, but automated. And 3, even recurring subscriptions for basic things, consumables, should be set up to remove that need for daily management.
Automating just removes the human element entirely. The weak link.
It is the weak link. You make the strategic decision once when you're clear-headed and focused, and then the system executes it for you indefinitely. The greatest benefit, though, is the massive freeing up of your mental space.
Yeah, you're not wasting energy worrying or calculating or just remembering. The system just confirms the decision is already done.
That relief is priceless. It removes so much of the stress associated with managing bills and savings. And the advice is always to start small. Just automate one savings transfer this week. Feel that immediate relief of knowing the money is already moving toward your goals without needing your daily attention. Hashtag 1.4 starting investment early, and simply habit #4.
Okay, so if the first three habits are all about creating capital, this one is about making sure that capital actually works for you over the long term.
This isn't new advice, but it is the absolute foundation of long-term wealth. You have to start early, even with small amounts.
It's the time, right? Time, not the amount of money, is the single most powerful factor in compounding. I mean, the examples are always staggering. A 20-year-old investing $100 a month will often end up richer than a 40-year-old investing $500 a month.
It's just the math. It's those extra 2 decades of compounding returns. That early start is an immense, unrecoverable advantage.
So when you're beginning, simplicity wins.
It always does. The practical guidance is so clear. Start with low-cost index funds that track entire markets. Think of funds that track the S&P 500 or maybe a total global index. By buying these, you're essentially investing in the long-term collective success of hundreds, even thousands of established companies.
That's key for the learner audience that we're talking to. An index fund is not a stock, it's a basket of stocks. It removes the need for you to do individual stock picking, which is incredibly risky and so time-consuming for the average investor.
You're leveraging diversification and low expense ratios. You get to keep more of your money because the fund isn't being actively managed by a team of expensive analysts. It's the highest probability strategy for long-term investors.
So you're minimizing costs, maximizing diversification.
And you're essentially just betting on human ingenuity and global economic growth, which is a bet that has, historically proven to be almost impossible to go wrong this way over multi-decade periods. Hashtag 1.5 immediate implementation. Habit #5.
Okay, this next habit. This one directly attacks the intellectual trap that I think we all fall into. It's called the consumption trap.
Oh, this is a big one.
We are information sponges. We watch this deep dive, we read the articles, we listen to the experts, and we feel educated.
Yes, and that feeling of being informed, it creates the illusion of progress. You feel good because you absorb the knowledge, but you haven't actually taken a single step forward in your financial life. You're just a passive consumer of financial ideas, not an active builder of wealth.
So how do you break that?
You have to move from being that passive consumer to what the sources call the active builder. You have to force a kinetic step, a physical action. You pick one actionable item from whatever you just learned, and you implement it that day.
No waiting.
No waiting. This forces inertia to break. So if you just finished watching a video on high-yield savings accounts, you immediately spend 20 minutes opening one. If you heard about a specific index fund, you spend time right then researching the brokerage account you need to access it.
Even if the action is small, like checking your credit score or increasing your workplace retirement contribution by just 1%.
It still counts. In fact, the small actions are often the best place to start because they represent tangible progress, not just mental agreement. The sources are relentless on this point. Passive absorption for months or years leads to stagnation.
Real progress is always driven by small, consistent, active building steps.
It takes maybe 20 minutes to set up that automated transfer we talked about in Habit 3. Do it today, not tomorrow. Hashtag 1.6, breaking the money taboo. Habit #6.
This habit highlights a really strange societal paradox that keeps so many people stuck.
It's a weird one. The research suggests that 62% of Americans avoid discussing money candidly with their family or friends. We treat it like it's shameful or, vulgar to talk about.
That's astounding. But at the same time, the same data shows that 66% of people believe that candid, open conversations about money are absolutely crucial for achieving financial freedom.
Right.
And especially for building generational wealth. The disconnect is paralyzing. We know we should talk about it, but the discomfort is just too high.
And that taboo persists largely due to fear. Fear of judgment, fear of revealing our mistakes, fear of being compared to others.
So how do you break through that? The recommendation isn't to just start bragging or competing.
No. It's to collaborate and learn. You talk to trusted peers, your partner, close family members about strategies, goals, and critically about stakes.
So instead of asking how much money do you make, which is super competitive.
Right, which is the wrong question.
The approach should be learning-focused, and the sources suggest using some casual openers to just reduce that initial fear.
Absolutely. You can start with really low-stakes questions. Hey, I'm trying to optimize my spending lately. What budgeting app do you use? Or what kind of financial routine works for you?
Simple things.
Very simple. Or, if you're talking about investing, you can ask a trusted friend what their basic long-term strategy is, not what their specific stock picks are. By focusing on the systems and the processes rather than the raw numbers, you gain valuable insight without that judgment factor. The sooner you start collaborating, the faster you can learn from other people's hard-won wisdom. Hashtag tag 1.7, reframing for long-term gratification. Habit hashtag 7.
Okay, this one is purely psychological, but it feels like it forms the essential foundation that allows all the other habits to actually stick.
It really is. We are wired for instant gratification. You tap a button, food arrives, you want entertainment, it's there. Wealth building is the polar opposite. It is the ultimate long game.
And it's so difficult for our brains to process that delayed gratification. I mean, when you see $500 leave your account for an investment you won't touch for 20 years, the immediate temptation to pull that money back for some short-term fun is just immense.
It is. So this habit requires you to actively reframe that moment. The sources suggest shifting the perspective from viewing saving as a sacrifice to seeing it as a gift to your future self.
I like that framing.
It's powerful. Every dollar you save or invest today is buying you more freedom, more options, more security, 5, 10, 20 years down the line. That impulse purchase you skipped isn't a loss. It is literally a payment you just made to future you.
And this is where active visualization becomes a really powerful technique.
It is. And you shouldn't just visualize the future vaguely, like I'll be rich. You should spend time, maybe during your monthly money date, visualizing specific, concrete scenarios. What kind of house are you in? What kind of professional choices are you able to make because you don't have financial pressure?
What exact choices is that future self thanking you for making right now?
Yes. When you transform that short-term denial into an act of genuine self-love and prioritization, the psychological resistance just collapses. Saying no to immediate consumption doesn't feel like deprivation anymore.
It feels like choosing freedom.
It is choosing freedom. Hashtag 1.8. Investing in your skills. Habit. Hashtag 8.
So we've established 7 habits to accumulate and protect capital. But this 8th habit, it addresses the source of the capital itself.
And the source material contends that the single best investment an individual can ever make is not in stocks, not in bonds, not in property, but in themselves.
In their skills, their knowledge, their capabilities.
Exactly. And that's a really powerful statement, especially in a world that is just obsessed with asset prices. It's hard to quantify sometimes, but the ROI calculation they provide really brings it home.
Right, let's walk through that. If you spend $500 on a course that teaches you a skill, let's say it's advanced Excel modeling or technical writing.
Something tangible.
Something tangible that leads to a promotion or new side work that nets you an extra $1,000 per year. That's a 200% return in the first year alone.
And that return just compounds because you own that skill forever.
Yeah.
And it continues to increase your earning power year after year.
So this brings up a question. We have finite resources. Should we prioritize skill investment even over, say, maxing out a 401k match?
That's the tricky one. The answer the sources imply is it's nuanced, but essentially yes when you're starting out, because skills represent uncapped potential. Now, maximizing your employer 401k match is always step one. You never leave free money on the table.
Right.
But after that, investing in a skill that increases your salary from $50,000 to $70,000 has a much larger, more immediate impact on your long-term wealth potential than any single stock investment could. It raises your baseline earning power, which makes all your subsequent saving and investing so much easier.
This is where intentionality is just non-negotiable then.
Absolutely. The rule for buying courses or learning materials is fantastic. You must be able to clearly articulate how the skill you acquire will benefit your career or your business. If you can't explain the direct, tangible benefit, you shouldn't buy it.
That prevents people from just accumulating costly, unused learning materials. The shelf help problem.
The shelf help problem, exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, the security insight here is profound. Your skills and your knowledge cannot be taken away by a market crash, or an investment drop, or a company failure. They are literally yours to keep forever. They increase your resilience.
So we've built the internal discipline. We figured out how to create the capital. Now we have to understand the environment this hard-earned capital operates in. If part 1 gives us the rudder, setting our internal course, Part 2 gives us the map of the coming storms. We have to recognize these 3 repeating historical stages of economic mania and collapse so we can avoid the traps.
This is where it gets really interesting.
So financial history is it's incredibly clear on this. These cycles repeat with a remarkable predictability.
They really do. And it's all driven by a shift in human psychology. It moves from cautious calculation to just reckless greed. And understanding the characteristics of each stage is absolutely vital for protecting your capital.
Okay, so stage 1, this is the baseline. This is the healthy fill.
This is the sane part of the cycle.
Right. Stage 1 is driven by conviction. People are buying assets, stocks, real estate, whatever, because they believe in the long-term fundamentals and the underlying value of that asset, not just the momentum of the price.
Historically, this looks like rationality. Back in the early 1990s, the stage 1 investors were buying emerging technology or internet company shares.
Even when they weren't profitable.
Right. Even when they were losing money, they bought them because they fundamentally believed the internet was going to change the world. They were buying on a decades-long conviction.
And in the housing market, stage 1 means people are buying houses they can actually afford, typically secured with traditional fixed-rate mortgages.
They want a home to live in. They view the house as a solid generational investment. The key words here are affordability and long-term utility.
So the same principle applies to, say, the 2010s, right after the 2008 crash.
Perfect example. Assets were cheap. Investors were slowly, cautiously buying back into the stock market or acquiring early crypto assets based on a long-term conviction about the technology or its scarcity.
So in stage 1, prices are increasing because actual value is increasing and smart money is entering the market.
Exactly. But as that money accumulates, the returns start looking really attractive. And that's when the psychology shifts from conviction to opportunity, and then to greed.
This is the dangerous transition phase. It's driven by rising greed. As asset prices go up, making, say, a 10% return requires more and more capital.
Right.
So the thought process shifts from owning value to just accelerating returns. It becomes, okay, the price only goes up, so I wonder if there's a way for me to expose myself to more of these assets by using more debt.
And that's the moment everything changes. This is where the mechanisms of debt start flooding the market, artificially inflating prices far beyond their fundamental worth. Let's look at the historical mechanisms of this amplification.
Let's take the 1990s dot-com era. As stocks were soaring, margin debt became really common.
Explain what that is for someone who might not know.
It's debt that's provided by your broker to you, an individual investor. It lets you borrow against the value of your existing portfolio to buy more stock. So if you have $10,000, margin might let you buy $20,000 worth of stock.
So your gains are amplified.
Your gains are amplified, but critically, your losses are amplified too. And the broker can demand immediate repayment if the stock drops. That's a margin call.
The real estate bubble of the early 2000s is the textbook example of stage 2 amplification. The core belief was that home prices only go up.
I remember that so clearly.
And that belief led lenders to introduce increasingly riskier products. We saw adjustable rate mortgages, or RMs, which started out cheap but then spiked later, forcing people to either rapidly refinance or default.
And then, crucially, the rise of subprime mortgages and the infamous NINJA loans.
No income, no job, no asset loans. It meant people were buying these massive homes they couldn't possibly afford simply because the underlying collateral, the house itself, was assumed to always increase in value, and that made the bank feel safe.
That is profound when you think about it. The banks weren't lending based on the borrower's ability to pay.
Not at all.
They were lending based on the assumed future value of the asset. It's a collateral-based, speculative bet, and it was all fueled by cheap, easy money.
And we saw it again in the 2010s and 2020s. With historically low interest rates, cheap money was just everywhere. We saw record amounts of margin debt in the stock market and the crypto markets, plus the proliferation of instruments like 3x leveraged ETFs.
Can we just pause there for a second and clarify what a 3x leveraged ETF means for the average investor? Because that's a stage 2 amplification mechanism that I think a lot of people don't fully grasp.
Absolutely. So a normal exchange-traded fund, an ETF, it tracks an index, like the S&P 500. If the S&P goes up 1%, your ETF goes up 1%. Simple. A 3x leveraged ETF is designed using complex financial instruments called derivatives to return 3 times that movement in a single day. So if the market goes up 1%, you gain 3%.
Sounds great.
It does. Until market goes down 1% and you lose 3%. It accelerates your exposure through internal leverage, making small dips far more painful. It requires incredible discipline to manage. It's really a tool for short-term speculation, not long-term value investing.
So stage 2 is characterized by this increasing desperation to accelerate returns. You're injecting massive amounts of borrowed money into the market, which pushes prices into the stratosphere, but it's still, somewhat tied to the underlying asset. Then comes stage 3.
Stage 3 represents the complete detachment from reality. Investors at this point, they no longer care about the underlying asset or even owning it.
So what do they care about?
They only care about prediction and riding momentum to get rich at warp speed. It's a psychological shift from I own this valuable asset to I am betting on this price movement.
The pre-dot-com bubble, it saw the explosion of amateur day trading. People were buying based purely on momentum, treating the market like a casino. If the price is going up, they bought.
Often using that margin debt from stage 2.
Right, without ever looking at the company's balance sheet or what it even did.
And the mechanism was far more complex before the 2008 crash. In that cycle, stage 3 investors weren't just trading houses, they were trading derivatives based on the underlying mortgage payments. These complex instruments were mortgage-backed securities, MBSs, and even more abstracted collateralized debt obligations, or CDOs.
Let's break that down for the listener. What exactly is a CDO, and why did it represent such a detachment from reality?
Okay, think of it like this. A bank takes thousands of individual loans, mortgages, car loans, credit card debt, and bundles them all together into one giant pool. They then chop that pool into slices or tranches, and they sell those slices as a security. That's a CDO. So investors aren't buying a house anymore, they're buying the right to the monthly payments from that pool of debt.
So it's detached.
It's completely detached. You no longer see the risk profile of the individual homeowner in Iowa. You just see a guaranteed rate of return based on the prediction that enough people will keep paying their bills.
And the detachment got even worse with the synthetic CDO.
Oh, exactly. Synthetic CDOs represent the absolute pinnacle of stage 3 speculation. You didn't even need to own the actual underlying pool of mortgages to bet on its failure or success.
How does that work?
You could take out insurance, known as the credit default swap, a CDS, on that CDO. If you bought protection via a CDS, you were essentially betting that the homeowners would default. This allowed speculation to multiply endlessly, with people betting against the system without ever owning the actual debt. It maximized risk and created this massive short incentive.
It transforms investing into pure probability management. It's just a bet. And in the current economy, we see this same psychology manifesting in outright gambling markets.
Precisely. Instead of owning Bitcoin or Ethereum, a significant portion of the market is just betting on whether Bitcoin hits $150,000 by a specific date, or they're betting on political outcomes, regulatory outcomes. The source specifically notes that in some of these prediction markets, people are betting over $1 billion a week on these outcomes.
Wow.
That signals maximum stage 3 mentality, a focus on immediate, maximum theoretical return through prediction, completely divorced from long-term value or ownership.
To truly understand the danger here, we have to contrast the downside risk between stage 1 ownership and stage 3 speculation. Let's stick with that example of Bitcoin trading at $100,000. With an expected rise to $150,000, that's a 50% increase.
Okay, so in the stage 1 scenario, you bought $1,000 worth of Bitcoin outright. You own the asset. If it hits $150,000, your $1,000 is now worth $1,500.
A nice 50% gain.
A great gain.
Yeah.
Now, if the price temporarily drops to $80,000, you are down $200, but you still own the asset. You can hold it because you invested money you were willing to leave there for the long term. Your risk is volatility.
But in the stage 3 scenario, you use that same $1,000 to purchase a derivative contract. And that contract is structured to yield maybe an 1,100% gain if it hits $150.
So that $1,000 could turn into $11,000.
Exactly. That's the lure. That's why people are drawn to it.
But the downside is an absolute and instantaneous loss. If the price hits $110,000, which is a perfectly respectable 10% gain, but it fails to meet the specific target of that highly structured contract,
You lose everything.
the stage 3 investor loses the entire initial $1,000 investment. The structure of the derivative contract forces an all-or-nothing outcome. It's a binary bet.
So the stage 1 investor faces temporary volatility, which they can usually ride out if they have the stomach for it. But the stage 3 gambler faces absolute instantaneous wipeout. Their whole premise relies on an exact prediction, often amplified by leverage that triggers a forced liquidation the moment the market moves against them.
The mechanism of the investment itself is designed to maximize the potential for a burst. And that amplification of risk is precisely what makes the inevitable bubble burst so devastating. The losses aren't just contained to the original investment, they're multiplied by the debt and the derivative structure. Hashtag 2.5, the inevitable burst and historical consequences.
This cycle, it's not hypothetical. It is historical law. Every single time the market moves through stage 1 conviction, stage 2 amplification, and stage 3 detachment, it ends in a devastating recession or a major market crash.
Every time. After the stage 2 margin debt and stage 3 trading mania of the 90s, we had the dot-com crash. After the stage 2 subprime debt and stage 3 CDO trading of the 2000s, we had the great financial crisis of 2008. The magnitude of the bust is directly proportional to the amount of leverage and speculation that accumulated in stages 2 and 3.
We have to internalize this data. Over the last century, the U.S. has endured 16 recessions and 25 market crashes, which are defined as a drop of 20% or more.
Volatility and crashes are not exceptions to the system. They are essential, painful cleaning mechanisms that purge the excess debt and speculation from the market. They're a feature, not a bug.
So the sources point to some current indicators that might signal underlying instability following a period of massive amplification. For instance, the housing market is facing this trifecta of issues: high prices, high mortgage rates, and low inventory. These are hallmarks of a system that has accumulated a lot of stage 2 risk.
And while you hear a lot of discussion about the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates multiple times in 2025 to stimulate the economy, we have to recognize that stage 2 behavior is inherently destabilizing. Recognizing these historical signs like widespread reliance on high leverage or complex speculative instruments is paramount.
So the financially savvy investor doesn't try to predict the exact date of the burst,
No, you can't.
but they recognize the stage the market is in.
That's the skill.
Okay, so now that we've established the chaos that is the macro environment, let's pivot to the defensive strategies. How does the disciplined investor, the one who completed part 1, use that stability and capital to navigate, survive, and ultimately capitalize on the inevitable volatility of part 2?
When these predictable market busts happen, the people who ignored the internal habits and dove headfirst into stage 2 and 3 amplification, they are wiped out. But the financially savvy investors, the ones who follow these 3 rules, they not only survive, but often become wealthy by capitalizing on the wreckage.
This is the absolute antidote to the detachment of stage 3. It's often attributed to Warren Buffett, but it's really just a universal principle of risk management.
It is. If you cannot articulate the underlying asset, its value proposition, and why it should appreciate beyond just internet hype, you must not buy it. Period.
This rule is essential because understanding is what breeds conviction. If you bought a low-cost index fund, that's stage 1. You understand you are betting on the long-term success of the American or global economy. So if the market drops 30%, you know the fundamentals haven't just vanished. You can hold your position.
But if you bought a synthetic CDO or some complex leveraged derivative stage 3 stuff, and you can't explain how that instrument functions or where its inherent risk lies, you're just gambling on momentum.
And when the price starts dropping, you have zero conviction to hold on. You just panic sell and you lock in those losses.
There's a simple test you can administer to yourself right now. Try to explain your biggest investment to a moderately intelligent 10-year-old. If you can't make the case for its long-term value in clear, simple terms, you're simply riding someone else's speculative wave. You should walk away.
This is the risk mitigation rule, and it links directly back to the stability that we built in part 1. Investment money has to be extra money. It has to be capital that is not needed for essential life expenses like your rent, your bills, your groceries.
And why is this so critical? Because when the market crashes, and we've established that it will, you must have the psychological safety net to remain a long-term investor.
Right.
If you have invested money that you need for next month's rent or your kids' tuition, a 30% market drop forces you into what's called involuntary selling. You are forced to sell your asset at a loss simply to meet your immediate liquidity needs.
And this rule also protects you from the nightmare of stage 2 leverage. If you have margin debt and the market drops, the broker issues a margin call, forcing you to either inject more cash or sell immediately at a loss.
If your investment capital is entirely extra money, you are shielded from that pressure. You can sit tight, wait out the volatility, and maintain your position. Maintaining dry powder cash or cash equivalents is the financially savvy move. It prevents that panic selling, and it keeps you positioned for the next roll.
All right, this is the overarching framework that we use to understand the opportunity that's embedded within all this volatility. P.O.P. It stands for panic leads to work. Overselling leads to opportunity, leads to profit.
It's a great acronym. It's a conceptualization that market crashes aren't just disasters. They are necessary repricing events.
We know the frequency. 16 recessions, 25 crashes in the last 100 years. The cycle is inevitable. When the bust happens, the panic is instant and it's massive. It's driven by the fear that the collapse will be permanent this time.
And that fear triggers the overselling. And it's primarily by those caught in the Stage 2 debt traps or the Stage 3 derivative losses. They are forced to liquidate their holdings instantly, often at rock-bottom prices.
And that overselling, that's what creates the opportunity. For the investor who followed Rule 2, the one who only invested extra money and maintained that dry powder, this is the moment to deploy that capital.
They're buying good, fundamentally sound assets, the ones the Stage 1 investors still believe in, at heavily discounted prices. They are literally buying assets on sale.
Look at the historical examples. That 30+% stock market sell-off in early 2020 during the pandemic panic, the entire market being cut in half during the 2008 crash, the massive drop in internet stocks during the dot-com bust. These were horrific moments for speculators and anyone who was over-leveraged, but they represented once-in-a-decade opportunities for those who had the capital and the patience to buy.
And the final P, profit, it assumes you deploy that capital strategically and that you possess the patience to hold those discounted assets until the market inevitably recovers and begins Stage 1 of the next cycle.
The cycle repeats.
But only those who maintain discipline and dry powder are positioned to profit from the panic of others. #tag outro.
Wow, what a deep dive. True financial freedom really demands this dual mastery, doesn't it? You need the internal discipline that's cultivated through those small, consistent habits, aligning your money with your values, automating your transfers, and moving from being a passive consumer to an active builder. That discipline is what creates the stable capital.
And then you need the external historical awareness to recognize and actively avoid the destructive escalation of these market cycles, especially the debt amplification of Stage 2 and the pure speculative detachment of Stage 3. Just getting your money in check, matching your spending to your priorities, and actively visualizing that future self receiving the gift of freedom, that fundamentally changes the quality of your life today.
We've established that the greatest investment is in your skills, which provides security and an uncapped ROI, and that market crashes -PIA are just inevitable opportunities for those who have the capital and the knowledge.
So consider this provocative thought as you move forward. You understand the power of investing in yourself. That's habit number 8. And the wealth building potential that comes from capitalizing on market panic. That's rule number 3. Which specific high value skill are you going to intentionally develop this month? A skill that increases your earning power and cannot be taken away from you. A skill that ensures you are fully equipped not just to survive the next inevitable market cycle, but to be one of the few who capitalizes on the deep opportunity it will inevitably bring.